Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible. Excuse me, verse by verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We're in 2 Kings, chapter 16 and 17. And this is the beginning of the end, or the temporary end for Israel. Or I should really say the beginning of the fall. And the Babylonian, we're streaming toward the Babylonian invasion. What usually is not in the minds of people is that about 80 years before Judah fell, or Nebuchadnezzar came, Israel fell. In other words, and if you remember, we go all the way back to Solomon's sons, Jeroboam. He divides the nation, okay, through his foolishness. And so from that time to the Babylonian exile, you had two kingdoms. You had a northern kingdom, which was Israel, whose capital was Samaria. And then you had the southern kingdom, which was Judah or Judea, and of course the capital was Jerusalem. The Nebuchadnezzar will come and completely destroy Jerusalem, the temple. But what we're going to see in the next this chapter here is, the next couple of chapters is the fall of Israel. The fall of Israel. And they will be completely wiped out. They will be deported by the Assyrians. And of course, then the Assyrians would be conquered by Nebuchadnezzar, because he will rule the world. And thus, later, further down, we will get into the prophetic writings, and especially Daniel, in which we will see the four world kingdoms. Up until this time, you've had great kingdoms. So Egypt, Assyria, which we're going to get not introduced to, but they're going to deport the northern tribes. So in other words, there have been great kingdoms throughout this time, but they were just that, great kingdoms. When we get to Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, those are the world dominating kingdom, the known world at the time. They will rule the world. Prophetically, you will have 4 kingdoms, 5 I think. So Babylon, who will rule the world, the Mede and Persians. Keep that word Medes in mind, because we're going to see that in these chapters coming up. The Grecian kingdom, and then the Roman kingdom, culminating with the kingdom of the Antichrist, of what we call the Antichrist, but again, it's really the man of sin. And all of these kingdoms rule the world. That's what we're steaming for, the beginning of that time when these world dominating kingdoms will happen. All right, so let's go to 2 Kings 16. So in the 17th year of Pekah, son of Remaliah, Asa, son of Jotham, became king of Judah. Asa was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord his God, like his ancestor David, but walked in the way of the kings of Israel. He even made his sons pass through the fire, imitating the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had disposed of. Disposed of before the Israelites. Now, so what is kind of going on? This is a Judah king. Remember, the kings focus on Israel. We'll get back to them in a moment. But one of the things you need to understand is that this term here, he made even his sons pass through the fire. This was, again, these practices where they would offer their infant children, could be toddlers, on what is called the god of Moloch. And it was this great, ugly, pagan god. I believe it might have even looked like some kind of a horse head or something like that. But anyway, he had arms. And these arms, they would heat up and they would glow. And then they would put the children on there. So this, what we're going to see is just how bad can be. And by the time we get through with this, you're going to see Israel will deserve, Israel and Judah, by the way, they deserve the judgment that God is coming here. And this is, by the way, what we're going to see in every case. And if you remember, we said that the sinful nature of man, this is where we come from, which is unbelievable. The sinful nature of man, okay, the sinful nature of man. We hide it through our so-called culture, okay, we hide it through our culture, but when you strip it all away, this is what man is. All right. Verse 4, he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Aram's king, Rezin, and Israel's king, Pekah, son of Remaliah, came to wage war against Jerusalem. They besieged Ahaz, but were not able to conquer him. At that time, Rezin, king of Aram, recovered Elath for Aram and expelled the Judahites from Elath. Then the Arameans came to Elath, and they lived there unto this day. Keep that kind of in mind. I'm going to expand on this later. Notice that they're living in the Israelites' land. Verse 7. So Ahaz sent messengers to I think it's Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. But this is sad that the Judah's king would have to resort to that and not turn to God, okay, whom they've had the history of God rescuing them. I mean, this, what is sad about this, and notice this statement here, I'm your servant. Let me read this and I'll come back. Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. March up and save me from the powers of the king of Aram and the king of Israel, who are rising up against me. Ahaz also took the silver and the gold found in the Lord's temple and in the treasuries of the king's palace, and sent them to King Assyria as a gift. The king of Syria listened to him and marched up to Damascus and captured it. He deported its people to Kir and put Rezin to death. Now, what is sad about this is the king of Judah. They had all of the prophecies and the promises of God, and yet he turns to a pagan king. That's what's wrong with this here. That's what's wrong with this. And in their hardness of heart, instead of turning to God, who would have rescued them, they turned to this pagan king. Verse 10. King Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and when he saw the altar that was in Damascus, King Ahaz sent a model of the altar and complete plans for its construction to Uriah the priest. Uriah built an altar according to the instructions King Ahaz sent from Damascus. Therefore, by the time King Ahaz came back from Damascus, Uriah the priest had completed it. And when the king came back from Damascus, he saw the altar. Then he approached the altar and ascended it. He offered burnt offerings and his grain offerings, poured out his drink offerings, and sprinkled the blood of his fellowship offerings on the altars. He took the bronze altar that was before the Lord in front of the temple between his altars and the Lord's temple and put it on the north side of his altar. Then King Ahaz commanded Uriah the priest offer on the great altar the morning burnt offerings, the evening grain offerings, and the king's burnt offerings and his grain offering. Also offer the burnt offerings of all the people of the land, and their grain offerings and their drink offerings. Sprinkle on the altars all of the blood of the burnt offerings and all of the blood sacrifice. The burnt altars will be for me to seek guidance. And Uriah the priest did everything the king commanded. Now this is, again, just this. If you're living in Israel at the time, it should have been disheartening for the king to turn to such idolatry here. Verse 17. Then King Ahaz cut off the frame of the water carts and removed the bronze basins from each of them. He took the reservoir from the bronze oxen that were under it, and put on a stone pavement. To satisfy the king of Assyria, he removed from the Lord's temple the Sabbath canopy they had built in the palace, and he chose the altar entrance for the gate. The rest of the events of Ahaz's reign, along with his accomplishments, though they're not written in the historical records of Judah the king. Ahaz rested with his father and was buried with his father in the city of David, and his son Hezekiah became king in his place. Now we will become very familiar with Hezekiah. Okay. Chapter 17. In the 12th year of Judah's king Ahaz, Hosea, son of Elon, became king over Israel in Samaria. Now, let me go to my hefty calendar here so that we can get sort of a timeline here. Now, remember, this is sort of a nice chart I came across. So we got the 10 tribes, and remember, this is when we say the kings of Israel and the fall of Israel, this is what we're going to be looking at here. We're coming to Hosea. He will be the last king before the fall. Now, what is interesting about this king here, Hosea, remember his kingdom is around 731 BC. Okay. And the way you look at BC time is you're going from the birth of Christ back. All right, but I want you to notice that date, and then wait a minute. I just lost my. Oh, here we go. All right, King of Judah. Come on, watch me here. All right, just give me a hard time here. All right, let me move this out the way here so I can see. All right, so where are you at, Kings of Judah? He never gave me this before. All right, so Zedekiah is the last king of Judah, if you think about this here. So that's why I said, look at the timeline here, 597. Okay, 597. So about 100 years. I think I said 80 before. I don't know how you want to do the timeline here. Where you at? Come on. I'm calculating here, guys. Let's see. Oh, 731 minus, what did I say was Judah's timeline here? 597. Okay, So my timeline was actually a little off, about 130 something years, 34 years. All right, so you might go, why am I going through all this? Just a trivia, but this is where we are right now in our timeline, though. So so the kingdom of Israel will fall. That's my point. The kingdom of Israel will fall about 100. It's like it's 130 years before. Okay, before Israel. In other words, they're going. So that would be like saying that half of the country of the United States fell, but in a bad way, not our Confederacy or Confederate War, Civil War, but being conquered. So let's say if Canada conquered us, but that would mean that the land would kind of lay bare about 100 years. So it would be like us living under land. I think one of the best ways to probably look at it would be Ukraine. How Russia is trying to invade Ukraine. Some of that land is already kind of conquered, rubble, destroyed. But imagine it being like that for the next 100 years. And of course, remember, this is God's judgment. So the kingdom, what we're going to study here as we go into that, the kingdom of Israel is going to fall. They're going to fall. And they're going to be wiped out of the land. And then Judah will come. Verse 1 says, in the 12th year of Judah's king Ahaz, Hosea son of Eli became king over Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, but not like the kings of Israel who preceded him. That's what one is bad. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, attacked him, and Hosea became his vassal and paid him tribute money. But the king of Assyria discovered Hosea's conspiracy. He had sent envoys to So, king of Egypt, and had not paid tribute money to the king of Assyria as in previous years. Therefore, the king of Assyria arrested him and put him in prison. Then the king of Assyria invaded the whole land, marched up to Samaria, and besieged it for 3 years. And then it says, in the 9th year of Hosea, king of Assyria, captured Samaria. He deported the Israelites to Assyria and settled them in Hala by the harbor, Gozan River, and in the cities of the Medes. Now, remember I told you to kind of really take note of the term Mede, because some 70 years, no, not 70 years, from this point, actually, it's about 200 years, the Medes will even conquer. Well, it's more than that. Maybe something like 200. I don't know. I haven't done the math yet, but maybe some 200. So 130 years, about 200 years. Yeah, about 200 years. The Medes will conquer Babylon. The Medes, the Mede and Persian kingdoms, and that's going to put us around the time of the book of Esther. Okay, the book of Esther. Actually, it's going to be before that, but just to kind of give you a timeline. Esther takes place during the reign of the Medes and Persians. Daniel will actually go into that time period himself, the prophet Daniel. So this now, the kingdom of Israel themselves has been deported. So now we're in the next study we're gonna go further into this fall. And then, as I said, that land, as far as Israel is concerned, will lay bare, except there will be some who will live in the land. And what we're going to find out is kind of the birth of the Samaritans. All right, you kind of get to understanding when we get to Jesus' time why the term Samaritan becomes so important. All right, guys, Don't forget to like and share this video. Subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. Hit that subscribe button. And remember, all comments are welcome. See you in the next study.